Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I don't even know why I am trying to sing in this wee Monday morning when I know very well that this throat and this voice is not yet warmed up. Welcome back, everyone, to this channel, the AlkaliYogi channel. And welcome back for another installment of reading How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Chap, Chapter 4, Part 2. I hope that you guys are enjoying this series thus far. I hope you guys are getting some information that for you is valuable and beneficial, quite frankly. And if you are, you would be doing me a huge solid if you liked this video and shared it, and maybe even subscribe to this channel. Yeah, before I carry on, I just want to take a minute and kind of just offload a little bit. I know this is not why you all are here, but this is a two-way street. So if I'm helping you, I'm hoping that you too can also help me. So, and all that's really required of you today is really just an ear, right? So today is Monday, the 9th of January. So we are fresh into a new week, and we are fresh into the second week of a new year. Excuse me, did I say a new week? Well, we are. We are fresh into the start of a new week, just as much as we are fresh into the start of a new year. And I had a really crummy, horrible weekend, if I can be honest with you. I took a huge blow this weekend out of nowhere that I didn't see coming, and I'm processing that. So if you notice a change in my energy, or if you notice a change in my smile and how much I even smile, it's because I'm going through something, and I expect that whatever I'm going through is going to be a long journey. There are going to be some pretty difficult days. I don't want to get too specific because rather I'm keeping it quite vague because whilst I have to offload, I also don't want to make this page like a personal page. But I do want to share with you all that I'm going through something really tough that I didn't see coming. And it's been a huge blow to my system. This weekend changed everything, and not in a good way. And I'm sure maybe some of you are thinking to yourselves, yeah, but whatever's being done for you is being done so that you can get to a better place. And I pray that that's right, because I thought I was already in a really great place. So I would not have needed really to improve on much, to be honest. Things are going really, really well. So surprised at the unexpected turn that things took this weekend. So who knows, maybe at some point I will be a little bit more transparent. But right now, quite frankly, I just needed to offload a little bit. Due to the nature of what I'm going through, it's really difficult for me to share this with people in my inner circle because I don't want there to be reactions to the information. Reactions that, you know, would just add layers to an already very, very tense and uncomfortable situation. So anyways, thank you for allowing me the grace to do that and get that off my shoulders. I can't say that I actually feel any better, but hey, I tried, didn't I? And anyways, what we suppress just, you know, grows. So I don't know, maybe there is some benefit in just letting it out. All right. So as you know, we are tackling nutrition in Paul Chek's book. Boop. This is the second edition, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, second edition. I've got the first one as well. I actually have yet to do a comparison as to what's actually changed. outside of, I know that in the second edition, he started to refer to metabolic typing using different language, such as primal pattern typing or primal pattern diets, etc. So, yeah, I mean, maybe at some point I'll be able to sit down and kind of sift through and give you guys an idea of what the difference is. But I guess if and when you get to a place when you want to purchase this book for yourself, probably a good bet to just go straight for the second edition, because I imagine it's been updated. All right, so with nutrition, we've spoken about processed foods. I gave you some examples as to why it's important that you support organic versus commercially farmed food. I hope that, again, you found that to be informative. Today, we're going to pick up with genetically modified foods, of which there are many. You know what I realized? I sat down here and I didn't even fill up my glass of water. I do have a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, which is separated. And then if you're wondering why it has different colors, it's because it has a bunch of tinctures. So it actually is more like orange juice bitters, if you will. I'm currently taking Dr. Morse's products, doing some more cleansing and detoxifying. Not because it's the new year. It's been an ongoing thing that I have been doing for months now. So it's just a continuation. It's not a restart, so to speak. So whilst this OJ should be tasting sweet and delicious, I know it's going to be delicious and more tart and sour with all the vitamins and minor minerals that I possibly want or need. Bottoms up. Well, you know, medicine doesn't necessarily taste good all the time, does it? Now, food, which is also medicine, now that tastes really good, depending on whether it's genetically modified or not. All right, carrying on. If there was ever a great need, or sorry, excuse me, if there was ever a great idea that could go very bad, genetic engineering of foods is likely to be that one idea. Genetic engineering, also referred to as GE, also called genetic modification, GM, is the manipulation of plant and animal development by altering the gene expression. The products of genetic modifications are often called genetically modified organisms, hence the acronym GMOs. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of farmers breeding prize bulls with prize cows to get superior cows, or, as my father spent many years of doing, breeding black rams with black ewes, both of which are known to produce offspring with black wool to get a higher percentage of black sheep. These are examples of genetic manipulation, but not within the confines provided by Mother Nature. But you are not likely to have heard of a farming mating a bull with a sheep to get a giant lamb chop, or a fish mating with a dogfish so the fish will come out when you whistle. While this may sound ridiculous, it is a direct analogy for what the biotech industry is doing with your food. So, as you can see, genetically modified foods is really a form of sorcery. No, but seriously, I understand that it is science, but it is quite ridiculous when you think about it because, well, I guess I'll say it this way before I just make a statement like it's ridiculous. Allow me to explain myself a little bit more so that I can give you some context as to why it is quite ludicrous that we would be playing with Mother Nature like this. You are nature. You came from her, and one day you will return to her. And chemistry is chemistry. Natural understands natural. Natural cannot understand artificial, super intelligent, or excuse me, AI rather, synthetic, etc., etc. As they would say on the streets, game recognizes game, right? So you recognize each other. So something natural is not going to recognize something that is artificial or synthetic or genetically modified, because by sheer virtue of chemistry, it becomes foreign chemistry. For instance, if you look at H2O and you remove the O or the H, it's no longer water, right? It's either now hydrogen or oxygen. You have changed the chemistry. When you remove, even for example, would be, and forgive me if I've used this before already, the egg yolk from an egg. That is changing the chemistry. Now you're asking your body to recognize something that is no longer considered to be whole chemistry insofar as how it came to be in this world. You being whole chemistry are going to recognize other whole natural chemistry. When you change the chemistry and it becomes something completely different, how do you expect that which is natural and whole to recognize something that now has become either no longer whole or is completely unnatural, depending on what's been added to it? Does that make sense? That's why, to me, it's absolutely ludicrous. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't need to have a PhD, because all of that is just excessive indoctrination. You also have to be able to just quiet the noise and everything that goes on in the ego, which is always, by the way, going to look for whatever is going to prove you right, because that's how it feeds itself. So it may conveniently disregard anything that is not feeding into the narrative that you've bought into. That is what the ego and the mind do. At some point, we all have to learn to tap back into our bodies where our intuition lies. We have to listen to our heart rhythm. Has the heart rhythm increased? Because that could indicate a subtle shift in consciousness, like, whoa, that didn't feel right. Has your breath now become more shallow? Another indication that can come from your body when you are either in danger or when you are being exposed to lies or something else. And the reason why the body can pick that up before the mind is because the body has been known, and I've read this to you. Oh, I've not actually come to this part yet in the book. I might, because I have been reading ahead. Forgive me. So if I've not actually read this portion to you, I can tell you that it's coming later on at some point in the book, where it talks about, how the heart actually emits 5,000 times more electromagnetic energy than even your brain. 5,000 times more. So that means that your brain, right, can only gather so much information, so much from the field that's around it. But your heart is able to go out into the ether up to 5, or out just outside of you, right? 5,000 degrees more, if you will, or 5,000 times more, right? In order to gather information about your environment and whether or not it's good for you, conducive, safe, yada, yada, yada. But how do you tap into that when you only live up here cerebrally, right? That is why you have to be not only aware of where your information is coming from, that which you're choosing to educate yourself with, but at what point are you able to also turn that off and balance that out with your yin, your feminine, your ability to feel and intuit things that your mind simply cannot comprehend. It doesn't have the scope and the range to bring back information to you that is equally, if not more important than the information that your brain is currently gathering. Does that make sense, guys? I hope I've done I hope I've done some service to sort of explain for why, to me, it's absolutely ludicrous that we would even be playing with that which is already perfect and whole and natural and recognizable, because it comes from nature, which is who we are, what we are made in the likeness of and ultimately return to. Anyways, continuing on. Biotech scientists attempt to splice genes from bacteria and insects, amongst other things, as well as other plants, into a given plant or species. More genetically engineered crops planted worldwide are designed to either survive exposure to a certain herbicide or to kill certain insects. One of the biggest problems with this very powerful technology is that the mechanisms by which it works or it doesn't work are not even understood by the scientists themselves. Genetic engineers certainly know much more about genetics than you or I, but they actually don't know with great certainty what will result from their manipulation of genes and Mother Nature's laws. Case in point, genetic engineers are falling prey to the same arrogance that led to conventional farming methods. They think they can improve, in quotations, Mother Nature and, quote unquote, outsmart her. That has yet to be done. Whilst the mechanisms by which genetic engineering take place are very complicated, particularly With regard to the scope of this book, it's safe to say that there are some real concerns. Genetic engineering can produce an allergen into food that previously did not contain it. For example, a soybean engineered with genes from a Brazil nut, designed to make it tastier, was found to produce allergic reactions in individuals with nut allergies. Some people apparently reacted violently to the GM soy. Nut allergies can be life threatening. This brings up another big problem. The biotech industry, supported by the US government, doesn't want mandatory labeling of foods containing genetically modified organisms. Well, that's always a good sign, is it not? And again, can you answer that with your intuition, please, and not your head, ladies and gentlemen? Whilst they worry it may hurt sales, because that's more important, or some other reaction, we simply can't predict since scientists producing GM foods are not required to prove the safety of the foods before selling them to you. And now, do you see the problem yet? Or still? Do you see it? No, yet was correct the first time. You know what the benefit is of these lives is that you will get to see the bloopers and all the times that I mess up. So again, I just want to tell you, it should make your spidey senses go on alert, yeah, when companies that want to tamper with your food, which is your medicine, are lobbying that they shouldn't have to reveal to the general public that they're purchasing genetically modified organisms that they're trying to pass off to you as food. What other industry has been lobbying to be completely free from liability should any injuries be incurred due to their products? Their products also going directly into your body through needle. Wink, wink. That law was passed in 1996. You can thank Donald Reagan for that. And again, they've just, I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding. They worry it will hurt the sales. That is telling you what their priority is. And the government is happy to back that up because they're being wined and dined. And again, it is not required for them to provide any safety data with regards to the foods before selling them to you. So if honestly, guys, if that doesn't hit home for you, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. It might be time to do a full-on detox, and not just a nutritional detox, but also like a media detox for like 3 to 6 months. Learn to think for yourself again. Learn to hear your own inner voice. Make that the louder voice before anything else. Clean out whatever's in your body that's, making you not hear or receive this message and the weight behind it for what it is. And trust me, there's a ton of weight behind this message because it begins with your food. It is your medicine. Before anything that you purchase in form of tincture, capsules, yada, 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 your food is your medicine. That's your first go-to. So if you're not well, then you're poisoning yourself. What is it that you're putting in your body that is poisoning you? Have a look. It's always going to be either in your refrigerator or your pantry, whatever is making you sick. 8 times out of 10 is in your refrigerator. Carrying on now. After all, when genetic engineering causes a familiar food to start producing a substance previously not present in the human food supply, it is possible to know who may have an allergic reaction to it. I'm going to reread that last little bit because the way I chopped it up, it may not make sense to you. The biotech industry, supported by the US government, doesn't want mandatory labeling of foods containing genetically modified organisms. Whilst they worry it may hurt sales, some of you could actually die from an allergic reaction or some other reaction that we simply cannot predict, since scientists producing GM foods are not required to prove to you the safety of the foods before selling you the foods. After all, when genetic engineering causes a familiar food to start producing a substance previously not present in the human food supply, it is possible to know who may have an allergic reaction to it. The lack of quality research supporting GM crops is a real concern. However, one of the most comprehensive animal studies on the consumption of GMs was done by Arpad Pausce. Pausce, I'm going to spell it out for you. Yeah, it's Pusztai. Pusztais. I'm going to go with Pusztais. Arpad Pusztai. Pusztai's research found that genetically engineered foods may also produce unexplained health effects in laboratory animals. Pusztai conducted studies with a GM potato, Galathus nivalis agglutinin GNA, which is ordinarily found in snowdrops, a type of flower, was added to potatoes to increase the plant's resistance to certain insects and other pests. The results showed that the GM potatoes had significantly less protein than the non-altered potatoes. The levels of starch, glucose, and nutrients were also significantly different. The GM potatoes were also associated with abnormal organ growth development and immune responsiveness in the rats that were served as the subjects in the study. Pusztai concluded that his research and that done by others did not conclusively show that GM foods were safe for human consumption at that time. He recommended that further research be done. Pusztai reported his findings in a television interview. He stated that it is very unfair to use fellow citizens as guinea pigs. Guinea pigs should be used in laboratories, and GE foods should be properly tested before they are approved for the market. Pusztai began his studies to prove that GM foods were safe, but when he exposed his results, which proved otherwise, he lost his funding and assistance. Now, this is in the food chain, in the agricultural sort of industrial complex. Could you not see how the same thing could potentially be happening in another sector? Oh, I don't know, one that's even more powerful and wealthier, like Big Pharma. What if scientists did test the product that mysteriously appeared overnight? Late 2020, early 2021, which was forced upon billions of people around the world, literally coerced, bullied upon them. Imagine all the scientists that wanted to have a real go at it and do what they do, which is science. Take something apart, have a look, right? That's what it means. You take something apart, you make a hypothesis or a prediction, you examine this product or item, you fully disassemble it, dissect it, take it apart like you would a carcass, right? In order to understand, right, what's on the inside and what it's made of, and then to have that, for the results of that very in-depth, deep dive into what it is that you are dissecting, proving something that the sponsors of said study don't want out. Can you imagine how many scientists would not have been able to proactively go after that product that was released and that was forced on billions of people in order to give it, a fair shot at what are the side effects? What is the efficacy? What are the potential downfalls? Basically, an actual cost benefit analysis. Is it worth taking this if ... might come as a result, given what it is that you were saying that this product is supposed to shield you from, which it actually doesn't even shield you from that. Did I say product? That thing which you are trying to avoid. I mean, guys, and I'm not even a mathematician. In fact, math was one of my worst topics and subjects in school, which is surprising. I have an economics degree. But I struggle with numbers, is what I'm trying to tell you all, yeah? And I say this to say that even someone who is not very fond of mathematical equations, especially highly complex one, that 1 + 1 does not equal 2 here, does it? You would not be lobbying for certain laws, and you would not be removing funding from objective scientific clinical studies if you were for the people. And worst more is that the government is happy to play along because they have been bought and purchased. Well, now it's time to go on and touch on irradiated foods. Let's say I invite you over for a turkey dinner and told you that before cooking the meal, I'd been using my new food sanitizer. My new sanitizer happens to deliver 4,500 rads of radiation, which is about 150 million times more radiation than the standard chest x-ray. That was 150 million, okay, in case you didn't pick that up, times more radiation. The radiation source will be cobalt, CO60, or possibly caesium, CS137. The remains of spent military nuclear fuel, and if you get too close to my new sanitizer machine, you could get one hell of a tan. Now, how excited would you be about tasting my turkey? If this sounds ridiculous, you may want to take a seat. I've just described the radiation dose for meats as approved by the US FDA. While there are other sources of radiation that can be used on your food, such as the use of costly linear accelerator, e-beam technology left over from President Reagan's Star Wars program, the U.S. Department of Energy, DOE, has aggressively promoted food irradiation for decades. The DOE sees food irradiation as a way of reducing disposal costs of spent military and civilian nuclear fuel by providing a commercial market for caesium nuclear wastes. Food irradiation is touted as a needed means of food sanitation by government agencies such as the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, FDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, known as the USDA, DOE, which is the Department of Energy, and the, wait for it, World Health Organization, the WHO. And last but not least, the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. Oh, and I missed one, the World Trade Organization, WTO. I can't make this stuff up. I mean, this comedy writes itself. It's always the same players, isn't it? I mean, you can't even get a new face in all of this. It's literally always the same agencies and entities doing the same dirt all the time. They don't even change the script. Barely. I mean, they tweak it. Instead of this, you're going to be fearful of that. If it's not terrorism, it's a virus, right? It's always going to be something. I probably shouldn't have used either of those words, guessing how the algorithm works. Anyways, carrying on. Both the FAO, which is, again, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the WHO, the very respectable World Health Organization, insist that food irradiation makes food more safe and available to the world's hungry. According to the WHO, ineffective regulation has, in many countries, overwhelmingly contaminated the food chain with pathogens such as Salmonella, Listeria, or E. coli 0157. The cost of remedying these problems is the cost of remedying this problem at its very root would be enormous. These organizations say that food irradiation reduces the incidence of foodborne illnesses, all the whilst experts have raised serious questions about the validity and necessity for food irradiation, such as the absence of a toxicological and carcinogenic testing by the FDA. Interesting. All the while, experts have raised serious questions about the validity and necessity for food irradiation, such as the absence, I repeat, of toxicological and carcinogenic testing by the FDA. As it turns out, the FDA approved irradiation based on 5 studies. That was 5. Selected from 441 studies published prior to the early 1980s. To this day, these early studies remain the basis for their claims that irradiation is safe. Well, hey, science doesn't evolve. when you set the science and, more importantly, when you own it. It doesn't evolve. It just is. It's a constant. It's not a constant that's changing. It's just a constant that shouldn't be questioned and should be trusted blindly and foolishly. Very good. Carrying on. A wide range of independent studies prior to 1986 clearly identified mutagenic and carcinogenic radiolytic products in irradiated foods, irradiated food, and confirm the evidence of genetic toxicity in tests on irradiated foods. Studies in the 1970s run by India's Institute of Nutrition reporting that feeding freshly radiated wheat to monkeys, rats, mice, and to a small group of malnourished children induced gross chromosomal abnormalities in blood or bone marrow cells and mutational damages in the rodents. Food irradiation results in major micronutrient losses, particularly vitamins A, C, E, and the B complex group. I mean, here's the thing, yeah? If your ish is standing on any kind of legs, your claims, your promise, your threats, you shouldn't need to censor by virtue of not sponsoring objectively independent studies, or rather prevent objective independent studies from taking place. And then when the results come out, maybe suppressing those results, maybe censoring them. Basically, if your ish, your product, your whatever, has any kind of merit to it or validity, it should be able to stand on its own credentials. And we should all be looking sideways, right, when the FDA plays stupid and goes along with, well, based on 5 studies from 40 years ago, we're good. We're going to keep moving ahead. Like they're not a bunch of scientists and they don't know that science is ever changing. Hence why we no longer put mercury in our fillings. Hence why we took the fluoride out of the water supply, although some cities have reverted back and regressed. This is an interesting time, after all, that we are living in. Because once we find out that certain things are toxic and harmful to us, right? Because information is constantly being gathered, things are constantly changing, you make modifications, not you put something in from 40 years ago that you didn't even actively look into objectively, and then you just turn a blind eye. I mean, the bribery of it all. Can you imagine? Maybe you can. If you have been awakened to what's happening and what's been happening over the last 2.5 years and a bit, then yeah, my guess is you can imagine. Foods that are approved for irradiation in the US. The following list of foods is currently approved by irradiation by the very, again, respectable FDA, and not at all corrupted. Seeds used for sprouting, like alfalfa and clover. The sprouts will not be labeled as irradiated unless they are also irradiated. So you can have an irradiated seed and not even know it. Again, serving the people or serving the corporations. Beef, pork, lamb, poultry, fruits and vegetables, wheat and wheat flour, eggs in the shell, herbs and spices and dried vegetable seasonings. Makes you wonder what's left. That's quite a lengthy list. But it turns out there are a couple of foods that are left, such as dairy, dried legumes and beans, and a few single category foods like honey and coffee. Bacon was approved for irradiation in 1963, but the approval was rescinded in 1968 because animals fed irradiated bacon showed adverse health effects. These effects are probably due to fat oxidation. The fat becomes rancid very quickly, which explains why nuts are not approved for irradiation in the US. So you're telling me that something that was approved for irradiation in 63 was then rescinded 5 years later because what? They came across data that proved that this was no longer a good idea. Perhaps they looked at objective journals and clinical studies that showed the abnormalities and the adverse health effects that would result due to animals consuming irradiated pork. So it sounds to me like science evolved in those 5 years, and the FDA, I guess, decided to do the right thing, so to speak, and banish feeding animals, at least livestock, irradiated pork. Irradiated pork. Imagine all the things that have to rescind, if you will, if they actually allowed objective science to have the funding that it needs from an unbiased, objective source that allowed scientists to actually conduct true clinical studies, randomized trials that yielded actual data that we could do something with and make decisions that were life-affirming with. Ooh, you can see I'm a little bit heated, right? Because, food is such a big portion of like the criminal activities and corruption. I get very passionate about this. It's so infuriating. Yeah. And actually, I'm going to drop a video here for you guys in a minute as to why they've attacked the food. So stand by. That's coming in a little while. Organic foods, so there's hope here. Organic foods cannot be irradiated, but the term natural for foods does not exclude irradiation. Some nutritional supplements like garlic are irradiated. To avoid irradiated foods, always ask store and restaurant managers if they sell or use irradiated foods. I mean, that's something that you could take a gander at for sure. Definitely have a go and see if you can gather any real information. But I spent an extensive amount of time working for some pretty great restaurants in the city of New York. And as someone who considered themselves at the time a fairly well-skilled server, bartender, yada, 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 who really had to know what I was selling, products, beverages, etc., inside and out. I can tell you that I've never been told whether the food that we were selling at the restaurant was irradiated or not. And if I'm being honest, it's highly unlikely that the kitchen staff knew, because who's even aware, right, that these foods are harmful? The owners are not going to ask because they don't know. It's not in the news. It's not like the journalists are doing their job and telling us what to worry for. No, they're also in the pockets of the corporations, right? So they're not doing their job. The restaurant owners don't know. The restaurant owners then go and hire people who also are not going to be privy to that information. Then you bring in the front of house, such as myself, the servers and the bartenders. Also, we don't have that information. So I don't know that you're going to be able to procure the information that you are seeking based on simply asking the manager or even the owner at a restaurant. But you could try. And again, I also worked for very reputable grocers in Calgary. Shout out to Community Natural Foods. And whilst I knew that about 98% of our products were non-GMO and organic at the time whilst I was working there, which was over a decade ago now. Again, there was never anything said about irradiated foods. I don't even know if anyone knows or how many people in the business would even know what irradiated foods are. So, but again, not discouraging you, just shedding light on the fact that because we're not being informed by the people that we entrusted to inform us, i.e. media and journalists, and instead you're having to come to the YouTube and get your information from the AlkaliYogi, whoop, whoop, that you pretty much, I mean, the onus is on us, guys, the onus is on us. I would say, to really prepare most of your food at home, because I think it would be very difficult to know for certain whether foods have been irradiated or not, whether from supermarkets and from restaurants. I would say forging relationships with farmers if you're not willing or able to procure your own foods. At least that way you can speak to the person that's there at the source that's growing your food. I think that is probably one of the things that you can do, that we can all do to help protect ourselves from these sort of unnatural, well, not unnaturally, but overly sanitized and now compromised, we'll say, foods. Fruits and vegetables. Eat as much. I was trying to combine much and raw. listen, I told you it's been an emotional weekend. I'm trying to hold myself together, for today's stream. So let's give this another try. Eat as much raw produce as possible within the confines of the macronutrient proportions from your primal pattern type or metabolic type. Weston A. Price noted that many native cultures did only a minimal amount of cooking. Much of their diet consisted of raw foods. Many cultures even ate much of their meat raw. Cooking, excuse me, cooking was used to soften fiber in some vegetables, making them more digestible, or to make meat more digestible. Here we go, another one's coming. Excuse me. The process of cooking kills vital enzymes that are needed to aid in digestion. Generally, these enzymes cannot survive in temperatures beyond 118 degrees Fahrenheit or 48 degrees centigrade. Many vitamins and secondary nutrients in foods are also heat sensitive. Consuming predominantly cooked foods increases your risk of becoming both enzyme deficient, which often results in compromised digestion. I am a perfect example of that. Whilst my food was alkali, shout out to the late great Dr. Sebi, most of my food, probably 95% of it, was cooked. And then I met with a health coach myself last year because as a health coach, sometimes I also need to be coached by others. So I hired a health coach, incidentally, not a Czech practitioner, because what I needed was very specific. And so I went to somebody who really only specialized in raw nutrition and detoxification. And he comes from Dr. Morse's school, actually. He is licensed and certified with them. And he put me on a raw diet. And I can tell you that I have seen a lot of benefits. I still struggle with it. It's been months, and I certainly haven't made my diet, my nutrition. I don't really enjoy using the word diet. 100% raw. It's nowhere near that. Although it was intermittently for a few months, it was, especially over last summer. But now I make it so that at least 50% or more of my food intake is raw. I basically have cut down to one cooked meal a day, and then I have something raw earlier in the day and something raw at the latter part of my day. And I have seen huge benefits to that. And this is interesting to me because to see also the Czech system and Paul Chek sort of verify a lot of what Dr. Morse is saying, which is, in order to get better first and to really cleanse your body and to improve your digestion. And if you're malnourished, i.e. you have vitiligo or, tooth caries, et cetera, all of these are symptomology of a body that is either struggling with malabsorption or that is vitamin and nutrient deficient, as just stated, and enzyme deficient. Right? So I like when I can marry two different schools of thoughts and there's some reconciliation. That's very, that's very not only interesting to me, but I highly enjoy that. So raw foods and juices have been used for thousands of years to recover from illness and detoxify the body. Quite simply, it takes life to give life. If everything you eat is dead, you'll soon be one of those people who die at the age of 35, but whose corpse continues to walk around for another 35 years, bouncing from doctor to doctor. Excuse me. Juicing is an excellent way to get your nutrients from your raw veggies and fruits. Many of the essential nutrients in fruits and vegetables oxidize very rapidly upon juicing. It's therefore important that you drink your juices immediately after juicing. Drinking them later in the day basically leaves you with sugar water. I recommend avoiding store-bought juices as most have been pasteurized, a process that kills vital enzymes. Again, heating, pasteurization, irradiation, yada, yada, yada. Anything they can to just shoot down your food, kill it. We've developed eating a vast variety of foods. Today, many people eat the same foods day in and day out. Different plants provide us with different essential nutrients. By consuming an array of different fruits and veggies, you will get a better variety of nutrients as well as limit your chances of acquiring food intolerances. The deeper its color, the more antioxidant a fruit or veggie will likely provide. Remember to keep within your primal pattern or metabolic type. The longer you stick to this way of eating, the more balanced your body will become. And at that point, you may begin eating more vegetables and fruits that may not be on your diet plan. Even if your fruits and vegetables are organic, it is still a good idea to wash them before consuming. A non-toxic soap will help get rid of possible parasites that might be hiding on your food and also any residues from transporting. You will find fruit and vegetable washes at most natural food stores, or you can make your own with vinegar and water. Remember to choose organic produce whenever it is possible. So we're going to pause there for today. We're already at 40 minutes, and I wanted to show you another short video. I told you this chapter is quite long, so we still have a ways to go. I'll probably make the next stream a little bit longer so we can get through a little bit more. Today we really just got to about 5 pages, but we'll definitely pick up in a couple of days, and we're going to begin with grains. But before I let you guys sign off for the day, I really just wanted to share this video with you about kind of, again, just giving you the information, kind of giving you hopefully the tools to help you understand and understand why it is that they are attacking the food so viciously and vigorously. And believe me, they are doing their work. They are doing their work. That's all I can say. Because they have a plan. They have a full-on plan. You can always tell that this is streamed because I'm not as prepared as I should be, because as I'm reading, different examples will come to me as to like, I have a clip that would actually help to I have a clip that would actually help to drive this point home. Let me just add that. So as you can tell, oftentimes this is a little bit ad hoc, but I'm just grateful that I have the things that I need to share with you in order to give you, again, some more context and hopefully that understanding that we're all seeking. So let's bring in this short little video clip, video file. And here we are. Enjoy.
To President Jimmy Carter by the name of Zbigniew Brzezinski. Zbigniew Brzezinski said, quote, "In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than to physically kill 1 million people. But in today's time, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than it is to control." End quote. Global 2000 was authorized under President Jimmy Carter. In Global 2000, which is a government policy, you can go ahead and look this up. It specifies how to use food as a weapon and how to use reproductive services as a weapon. If you go back to Dr. Henry Kissinger in 1974, who was a 32nd Secretary of State under President Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, he specified, quote, "Depopulation should be the highest priority of U.S. foreign policy towards the third world." End quote. They specified that the population is outgrowing our ability to control them. And so at this point, do you think that a government is interested in having people stand up against them, and you think they're not going to do something about it? They know the people are rising up against the evil that they are committing. So what is the goal? The goal is to remove 3 to 4 billion human beings from the planet. That is the point. They have lost control of the masses. People are not stupid anymore. People don't just trust their government anymore. They don't just trust the science, which there's no such thing as the science. Science evolves, changes, and there are different scientists, which means there's no such thing as one science. They are looking, they're studying, they're reading, and they're asking questions. So because of that, this government has made a decision to get rid of those people. And again, it don't matter what color you are. If you choose to stand up against us and you don't fall in line, we have to get rid of you.
And just like that. So I hope that helps to awaken you, but don't be woke. Be conscious, because we don't have the time to return to our deep sleep. That, my friends, that period is over. If we don't wake up, grow up, show up, and clean up, now we are handing over to the generations behind us a horrible, horrible reality. All right, I hope you've benefited from this stream and this chat, as well as this read. Read here has two connotations if you're, again, picking up what I'm putting down. Until next time, get free and stay free. Bye.